That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
All right, guys, that was a fantastic week. I want to remind y'all, I'm going to continue to give y'all an update on my own fantasy football playoff experience. Just that way, y'all know I am being held accountable, and I will make a video at the end of the year going through every single one of my teams, just so y'all know I'm not coming out here and just giving y'all some straight BS. Regardless, most of the leagues that I play in, y'all playing with me, so I'm sure y'all could call me out on anything that I'll try to sneak by you. But anyway, y'all know that I made the playoffs in 12 out of our 15 high-stake leagues. These leagues are anywhere from $60 to $200 buy-ins. And on top of that, we had 7 buys in the first round, which means we are in the first or second seed. And all these are 12 to 16 team leagues. But now, after round 1, it looks like we only lost 1 matchup going forward. I mean, we are going to have 11 out of 15 teams in the top 4 of their leagues. Unreal how hot we are running this year. Would be a lot better if we did not have Juju and Miles Sanders on every team, but regardless, that's besides the point. Let's get into this video and let's talk about our top 10 lessons learned in week 14 going into our last 2 weeks in the fantasy football season. And let's start it off with our number 1 lesson, the most important lesson that we learned this week. It looks like Jalen Hurts is going to save the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, coming out here and putting up a very impressive performance against the New Orleans Saints. And I understand, guys. I mean, it's not like the Philadelphia Eagles dropped 40 points in this game and were completely dominant all the way through. But we need to realize that this New Orleans Saints defense has been one of the best defenses in the entire NFL over the past month. I mean, even if you take out the game where they went up against the Denver Broncos in Kendall Hinton, really, that game's not something that we can use to draw on our strength of the New Orleans Saints defense. But everywhere else, they've been able to completely dominate. Jalen Hurts looked great in his performance as the first starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles that has had some talent in a very long time, as Carson Wentz has been one of the worst quarterbacks in the entire NFL. And on top of that, we know in a very tough matchup, Jalen Hurts demonstrated that rushing ability that we talked about so much coming into this week. Guys, what did I tell y'all when I was asked, should we pick up Jalen Hurts? Should I start Jalen Hurts? I said that we weren't necessarily going to be expecting Jalen Hurts to be the best starting quarterback in the NFL, but what we were going to be expecting is for him to be a fantastic fantasy option, given the rushing equity that he has in this offense, and going out there running for over 100 rushing yards this week. We just all can understand that Jalen Hurts is a top fantasy football option whenever he has a plus matchup now, because if that passing volume upticks to where maybe he sees 2 passing touchdowns, 250 passing yards, and if he's combining on, just say 80 rushing yards combined with a possible rushing touchdown, that makes him a top 5 quarterback option. Not projecting that every single week, but you need to make sure that he is on your roster just in case we see a good matchup for him upcoming. And on top of that, maybe you have a COVID situation with your quarterback, so please make sure that Jalen Hurts is rostered. Okay, so now our next lesson learned, going right back to the Philadelphia Eagles situation. It looks like Miles Sanders can save his 2020 season. Now, I know if you most likely drafted Miles Sanders in the first round, you were probably not in the fantasy football playoffs. I don't know how I have so many teams in the playoffs with Miles Sanders not completely tanking our season. But here, going out there, having 2 rushing touchdowns, 136 total yards, 14 rushing attempts, and 4 receptions. Now, I will say this type of efficiency is not sustainable for Miles Sanders, but the fact that he was able to put that athleticism on display, I mean, was fantastic. This is exactly why I was telling people to start Miles Sanders coming into this week. Whenever I was getting questions like Miles Sanders or DeAndre Washington, whenever I was getting questions like Miles Sanders or Latavius Murray, I was saying, guys, I understand Miles Sanders has been one of the most disappointing players in the entire season, but he's still extremely athletic. He still has that big play potential. He's still going to lead this backfield in touches, so we should continue to play him going forward. And here, what is most impressive about this performance with Miles Sanders, in my opinion, is honestly, this is a nicer reception mark than I expected. Y'all know the one knock that I thought we were going to give Miles Sanders, as I thought this Philadelphia Eagles offense was going to be better with Jalen Hurts, but I did not think that Miles Sanders was going to be able to get the targets based on the fact that we know that Jalen Hurts has that fantastic rushing ability. So I thought that he wasn't going to go through those reads. I thought that he was not going to check the ball down to Miles Sanders out of the backfield. But getting those 4 receptions is very telling. Miles Sanders could be a running back 2 down the stretch. Okay. Now, our next lesson learned, one of my best calls this week was to start Mitchell Trubisky. Okay, so here I think that we can clearly say that Mitchell Trubisky is a much better NFL option over Nick Foles. We've seen every single performance by David Montgomery and Allen Robinson be just off the charts with Mitchell Trubisky in there at quarterback. And this is why I told y'all to go out there and not be worried about Allen Robinson going forward with the transition to Trubisky, just because we knew Allen Robinson had the talent. And I perceived the move from Nick Foles to Mitchell Trubisky as more of a lateral move when everybody else thought it was going to be horrendous. Well, it looks like it was actually an upgrade. This offense is going to have a much nicer projection as we go through for these last 2 weeks than they have previously. Okay, so now our next lesson learned, something that I completely overlooked this past week. Brandon Aiyuk is a must-start wide receiver. I mean, 16 targets, 119 yards, 10 receptions, absolutely insane. And this was not even in a nice matchup. So if Aiyuk is getting this type of volume, how many times do I have to talk about this? Guys, this is the exact type of profile that we want in our starting lineups where, yes, maybe they are not coming through that touchdown volume quite yet, but we know that touchdown volatility comes after we get that volume. And here, if he's going to continue to see 16 targets, I think Brandon Aiyuk is a lock to make your starting lineup, as he could run a little bit hotter with these touchdowns down the stretch. Okay. Now, our next lesson learned is it looks like Jonathan Taylor is going to be a straight-up league winner in 2020. Now, I know I did not tell nearly enough people to start Jonathan Taylor as I should have. I believe that he was on our must-start running back video, but during the live streams, I'll admit a little bit, I was not sure of the overall touches he was going to see in this offense. But 20 carries, 165 total yards, 2 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, Jonathan Taylor is taking his game to a completely another level. He looks exactly like he did at Wisconsin, and I've talked so much about his production at Wisconsin combined with his athletic profile from the NFL Combine and why we want to be rostering him. Well, now I think given the fact that he is getting all the volume in this offense, he's also a player that needs to be in your starting lineup every week. Okay, so now someone that we made a call with a month ago that was going to be a league-winning running back. So happy to see it's coming through. I've never received so many nice DMs with people thanking us, but Cam Akers is balling right now, guys. I mean, I know it was on Thursday night. Feels like forever ago, but 29 carries, 2 receptions for almost 200 total yards. And honestly, guys, I mean, just imagine if the touchdown volume was there. Imagine if Cam Akers came away with 2 touchdowns, which would be entirely possible, given the fact that he saw 30 total touches. I mean, an absurd performance by Cam Akers, another running back that needs to be in your starting lineup every single week going forward. And why I told y'all that Cam Akers was going to be a league-winning running back a month ago was based on the fact that we knew he had more talent than Darrell Henderson. That was never in question, in my opinion, but we really liked was the fact that this Los Angeles Rams schedule going forward is unbelievable. So guys, Cam Akers is going to be a must-start running back for us in all formats. All right, so now our next player that we need to talk about is going to be Mike Gesicki, another player that I was a little bit too low on. I mean, it looks like Mike Gesicki and Tua have a fantastic connection that we really just did not give the credit that it deserved, coming off back-to-back extremely strong performances. I will say, I don't think this is something sustainable going forward. We're going to have to monitor that Devontae Parker injury, as Mike Gesicki ended up seeing a little bit more volume based on Devontae Parker going down. But 6 targets, 2 receptions, 65 yards, and 5 receptions. I'm sorry, 2 touchdowns, not receptions. Anyway, here, Mike Gesicki, a very strong performance coming off of one of his career-high games. I really love what we saw there. Okay, so now one of our worst calls this week, guys. Y'all know if you participated in any live stream, I was telling every single person to get them in their starting lineup. Okay, it looks like we were way too high on Keke Coutee. I'm just going to say it. 3 receptions, 24 yards, a touchdown on only 3 targets. I mean, embarrassing how high I was on him. I mean, lucky for us, he came through with the touchdown, which is completely random. I mean, it makes my call look a little bit worse than it was, but I promise you guys, this was one of the worst things that I've said in a very long time. I mean, we got lucky to get that amount of production. We got lucky to get almost 12 points out of Keke Coutee this week. It was a tough matchup, but still, you would expect, as the wide receiver 1 in that offense next to Deshaun Watson, we were going to see a little bit more. Okay, now another thing that we got wrong this past week, guys, is we were way too confident in Chris Godwin. We were way too confident that he was just going to dominate the target share in Tampa Bay. And it looks like all of these Tampa Bay Buccaneers options are really not living up to expectations. Y'all know I definitely told y'all to sit Mike Evans and Antonio Brown everywhere you could. But Mike Evans comes in this week at the wide receiver 44, Antonio Brown at the wide receiver 35, and Chris Godwin at the wide receiver 70. I mean, embarrassing. So sorry for anybody I told to start Chris Godwin. I thought this was a fantastic matchup. I thought we were going to see a lot more volume for this overall offense. And if we had seen historically, Chris Godwin had been that number 1 wide receiver. Okay, so now our last lesson learned is it's going to be Ezekiel Elliott is officially dead in Dallas. I mean, splitting this backfield with Tony Pollard this past week, I actually told a significant amount of people to start Ezekiel Elliott based on the fact that this was a very strong matchup where we thought the Dallas Cowboys were going to be able to put up points. And up until this game, we had mainly seen Ezekiel Elliott getting 75 to 80% of those backfield touches. And now that he's splitting that 50-50, I mean, he goes down in the range of a running back as a low-end running back 2, high-end running back 3. I'd much rather start a Myles Gaskin whenever he's active over in Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, a very bad performance right there. Okay, so now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. As always, if y'all did, go down there, drop that like, leave that comment, subscribe to the channel. Really hoping that y'all are able to go out there and dominate in your own leagues. But yeah, thanks so much, and I'll see y'all with the video tomorrow.